Hi guys, today we're going to be learning about multiplying rational numbers. You need to have your math textbook out and you need to be on page 203. Please get ready to go and then pause this video until you're all ready and then get started. Page 203. Okay, here we go. Let's read our I can statement. I can use the rules for multiplying integers to multiply rational numbers. So right there in the I can statement, you can see that we are not learning new rules. We're going to use the rules we already know for multiplying integers to multiply rational numbers. So that means we're multiplying fractions and decimals today with signs. Let's take a look at this first chart. Here we can see, let's think about whether the sign will be positive or negative. Let's remember our rule. Think about think about what it's going to be if there are no negatives, one negative, two negatives, and so on. Fill in your chart. For one negative, you should have put negative. If there's 0 negatives, then the answer will be positive. There's one negative, again, the answer is negative. And if there's 2 negatives, the answer would be positive. So the rules for signs is exactly the same as it was when we did integers. Go ahead and write that reminder over to the side. Remember that if there is an odd number of negatives, then like 1 negative, 3 negatives, 5 negatives, then our answer is going to be negative. And if there is an even number of negatives, like no negatives, 0, 2, 4, and so on, the answer will be positive. So odd, negative, even, positive. Okay, we're going to apply that now as we practice multiplying some fractions and some decimals. There are examples in your book. We're going to go straight to the check. Please turn to page 204, and at the top you will see the check. I'm going to rewrite this a little bit bigger. Negative 7/8 times 4/14. When we are multiplying with fractions, we do not need a common denominator. That is only for when we're adding and subtracting fractions. So that makes it a little bit easier. The other thing we want to check for is, can we do any cross reducing? Look up and down and look diagonal to see if anything can be reduced. Immediately I see a 4 and an 8. I know that 4 divided by 4 is 1 and 8 divided by 4 is 2. Another place that I see that I can divide is with the 7 and the 14. 7 goes into both 7 and 14. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 14 divided by 7 is 2. Now I just multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. Don't forget to think about the sign. I had 1 negative, so my answer will be negative. So the answer is negative 1/4. Come over here to the side and let's write some notes. What are we going to do when we're multiplying with fractions? Number 1, you are going to check to see if you can reduce. And remember, that's up and down or diagonally. Number 2, you're just going to multiply straight across. Get your answer. Remember, no common denominators. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators. And then step number 3, don't forget to think about the sign. Decide if it is a positive or a negative. Now, that is just if we have regular fractions, proper fractions. Now let's see if we have mixed numbers. So go down to the next check at the bottom of the page. Here we have negative 1 and 7/8 times negative 2 and 2/5. Now, when you're multiplying mixed numbers, you must get them to be improper. So write yourself a note that you must change to improper. When we were adding and subtracting, we could decide that it was optional. Here it is not optional. You must always change to improper. And you just did your homework on this, so this should be something that you're getting pretty good at. When I do 1, remember 1 times 8, and then add 7. So that would be 8 plus 7 is 15 over 8. Keep the negative sign. For 2 2/5, 2 times 5 plus 2. So that would be 10 plus 2 is 12 over 5. Keep the negative sign. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look for anything that I can cancel. I see that I can cancel the 5 and the 15. They both are divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 15 divided by 5 is 3. I'm also noticing the 8 and the 12. They're both even, so I could divide by 2. This would give me a 4 and a 6. But wait a minute, I can divide by 2 again. So maybe I should have divided by 4 to begin with. But if I divide by 2 again, I get a 2 and a 3. Next, I'm going to multiply straight across. So I would have 3 times 3 is 9. And then I'm going to have 2 times 1 is 2. It's negative times negative, which would be a positive. So we thought about the sign as well. Next, we're going to change this back to a mix. So at the end of the problem, it needs to be back to a mix. So 2 goes into 9. Let's see. Count by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 4 times with 1 left over. So it's 4 1/2. So the answer here would be 4 1/2. If you are confused about how to change it back, remember you can always do division. 2 goes into 9. Think 2 goes into 9 4 times. Subtract. Take your remainder of 1 and put that over the divisor of 2. So it's 4 1/2. Okay. Go ahead and turn to the next page. Let's look over on page 205. This is a reminder about what happens if they're in different forms. If you have one fraction and one decimal, you have to make a decision. Do you want to change them both to decimals or both to fractions? As a reminder, these non-terminating decimals, also known as repeating decimals, you need to always change those to fractions. So you might put here must change to fractions if they're repeating, similar to what happened when we had adding and subtracting. Remember, the ones that I'm looking out for are things that have denominators of fractions that have denominators of 3, 6, 9. Those are popular ones that always have to be kept as fractions because they are repeating decimals. Okay, let's try one. Go to the next page, and let's go to the check in the middle of the page. It is negative 0.64 times negative 1/4. So we have to make a decision on whether we want them to be both decimals or both fractions. I'm going to choose to change them to both decimals here because I know that 1/4 is equal to 0.25. That's one that we should know. That's a pretty common one. If you don't know that, you can also do your division. 4 goes into 1, none. Add a 0. 4 goes into 10 2 times. 8, subtract. Add a 0, bring it down. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So 0.25. So I'd have negative 0.64 times negative 0.25. Let's go ahead and think about the sign first this time. Negative times negative is a positive. So I'm going to keep a positive sign here so I know that I've thought about it. Okay, now come over here and let's do the multiplication. We're going to do it just with the normal multiplication algorithm. So you put 0.64. I'm not putting signs right now because I've already thought about the sign. You do want to line them up on the right side. They don't necessarily have to line up the decimal. This time it worked out that way, but you're just really lining up the digits on the right side. Start with the 5 and do 5 times 4 is 20, carry the 2. 5 times 6 is 30, plus 2 is 32. 5 times nothing is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. Let's move over a spot by adding a 0. And we're at the 2. 2 times 4 is 8. Let's erase these guys. 2 times 6 is 12. Carry the 1. 2 times 0 is 0. Plus 1 is 1. Let's go ahead and add. That would be 10. Carry the 1. 5, 6. Bring down the 1. Now, the important new step or a reminder step is that when you are multiplying with decimals, you must count the decimal places in the original problem. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 places after the decimal. So go to the end of the number and now go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where your decimal is going to go. So my final answer is positive, because we already thought about that, 0.16. And that's my answer. Okay, so let's move to one where we are evaluating by plugging in numbers and finding the answer. So this one says 1/2 AB. That means 1/2 times A times B. So they're replacing an A and a B here. You have to change to a improper fraction. Now, the nice thing is if you have 3 numbers, you can go ahead and look at all 3 at the same time and do some canceling. Notice they canceled the 2 to get a 1 and the 10 to get a 5. Then just multiply straight across. So when you do 1 times 5 times -4, that's -20. And then 1 times 7 times 9 is 63. So the answer is -20 over 63. Let's try one of these on our own. We have 2/3, replace the x, put your parentheses, and write -3 1/6. Replace the y, put the parentheses, -5 1/4. Remember, this means multiply. So let's go ahead and change them all to improper. I'm going to do this over on the lines so I have more room. 2/3 times 3 1/6 is going to change to 3 times 6 is 18 plus 1 is 19 over 6. Times 5 1/4 is going to be 5 times 4 is 20 plus 1 is 21 over 4. Notice I didn't put the negative signs. The reason why is because I'm going to go ahead and think about the negatives right now. I have 2 negatives, so my answer is going to be positive. Once I've thought about the negative and I know what the answer is going to be, positive or negative, I can then leave them out of the problem. Okay, let's check and see what I can cancel. Look around, I see a 2 and a 4. Divide by 2, I get a 1 and a 2. I've got a 3 and a 21, so divide by 3, I get a 1. Divide by 3, I get 7. Now let's rewrite that. That would be now 1 times 19 times 7 over 1 times 6 times 2. So the denominator is pretty easy. 1 times 6 times 2 we know is 12. 19 times 7, I'm going to have to come up here and do 19 times 7. That's 63. Okay, so I get 133. I don't know what that was, sorry. 133 over 12. Let's go ahead and divide that. 12 goes into 133 one time for the 13. Subtract, bring down the 3. 12 goes into 13 one time. Subtract, get a 1. So I have a remainder of 1/12. So my answer is now, my answer is now 11 and 1/12, and it is positive, 11 and 1/12. Okay, let's skip ahead and go over to a story problem. I am now on page 210, so go to page 210 at the top, and let's look at this story problem. Lena was practicing freediving. On her first attempt, she dove to a depth of -63.4 feet. Her second attempt changed by 2/5 of the original depth. How far did Lena dive on her second attempt? So our question is, how far was her dive on the second attempt? Let's write out the important information here. It's 2/5 of the original depth. That would be -63.4. You may remember from our percent chapter, the word of should make you think of multiplying. So this is 2/5 times -63.4. Now I have one fraction and I have one decimal, so I need them to be both fractions or both decimals. Here I am going to change to both decimals because I know that 2/5 is the same as 4/10 or 0.4, 0.4. So I have 0.4 times -63.4. Let's go ahead and write it out one on top of the other. I usually put the one with more digits on the top. And remember, we're lining them up here on the left. Start with the 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Carry the 1. 4 times 3 is 12. Plus 1 is 13. 4 times 6 is 24. Plus 1 is 25. We're going to count our decimal places. 1, 2. In your number, go from the end and go backwards. Whoops. 1, 2. So my answer here is going to be 25.36. Let's look back at the signs. I have a positive times a negative, so my answer should be negative. Let's reread the problem and make sure that it makes sense. The question is, how far did Lena dive on her second attempt? So she is diving, that's under the water. It should be a negative number. That is in feet. We also can see that she dove negative 63.4 feet on her first attempt. Her second attempt changed by 2/5 of the original depth. So she did not go as far on her second attempt. So it was 2/5 of the amount, which is smaller. So you can see that she dove negative 25.36 feet. That seems reasonable. Okay. Now, if you need more help with any of this, there are a couple other help videos that you can watch. You can go back and watch any of these examples. You're going to be practicing on some worksheets today, and then your homework will be on Alex. I hope you guys have a great day. See you later.